To be a good
Everything that
person.
you will do, everything that you will do with the
Mhm.
intention for the sake of God, whether it's good or avoiding evil, is act of worship.
Right. Right.
So in Islam, when we say worshiping God, unlike some people, just their mind goes just straight, okay, 5 times a day worship, prayer.
Right.
No, it's not just that. Everything and
Right.
anything that I do for the sake of the Creator in Islam is an act of worship. This is my
Right.
purpose in this existence. And now,
Right.
for instance, speaking with God, what you call supplication or dua or
Right.
prayer, whatever term you want
Right.
to call it, is not the actual
Mhm.
physical act of praying, prostrating 5 times a day. That's act of worship. In fact, the Prophet said that is worship itself. Dua, which is supplication or calling upon God or speaking with God, that is worship itself.
Right.
الدعاء هو العبادة. Dua is worship. So the acts of worship are many, many in Islam. Like I said, so giving charity, is that an act of worship in Islam? Yes. Fasting in
Zakat.
Ramadan, is that an act of worship in Islam? Yes.
Yes.
Going and doing pilgrimage, is that an act of worship in Islam? Yes. Smiling in someone's face, is that an act of worship in Islam? Yes. Sharing food with my neighbor, is that an act of worship in Islam? Yes.
Right. Right.
Worship in
These
Islam
are
is a
these are
lot more.
beautiful things. It's a beautiful practice, and I implement them. But I'm
Of
specifically
course,
asking. I'm specifically asking, so
I'm
to say.
coming to that. I'm
Right.
coming to
Okay.
the
I'll
prayer
let you
part.
speak.
I'm coming to the prayer part. Yeah. So I'm first highlighting first the
Right.
misunderstanding there with the idea of worship. That's
Right.
number one.
Right.
So what God requires of us is all of these things. Now you're
Mhm.
highlighting just one of them. And in
Right.
reality, you answered yourself. When you said we don't understand God, that was an answer to yourself, because it's all about first affirming whether that comes from God or doesn't come from God. If we
Right.
affirm something comes from God, and we already know the attributes of God, that He's the most wise, He's the most knowledgeable, and that Creator commands me to do a specific thing in a specific way, therefore, that act by default becomes the most wise, the most knowledgeable thing to do. Now, do I need as a human being to understand every single commandment that God asks me to do? Why He asked me to do the way He asked me to do it? No,
Right.
because I'm not the most wise, most knowledgeable person. Also,
Yes.
it is the testing of the submission that I'm going to do, submitting to the person who's more
Right.
knowledgeable than myself. Just like and a very basic example to be given, and for God is the highest of example. Of course, there's no analogies
Mhm.
you can give. But you go to the doctor, you understand this guy is more professional than myself, is more educated than myself. He tells
Absolutely.
me to
Yeah.
do this. I don't necessarily understand what's this medicine. Never heard it in my life. I just go to
Mhm.
the pharmacy. I have like this illness, chronic illness that I have, and then the doctor said, okay, you have this issue. Go to the doctor and get this medication. I don't really go and do extensive research of doctor's degree and life.
Right.
I know this
Right.
person's got more knowledge and wisdom in this specific thing.
Right.
So I go and buy and purchase the medication and take the medication, knowing for a fact that this is good for me because it's from someone who's more knowledgeable about me in that specific field. Now, what do we benefit from prayer? There's many things that we can highlight. Now, for instance, we talk about, because I've already answered your question by the fact that mere submission to God of being the most knowledgeable and the most wise is the answer. But can we see some wisdoms? We can see many wisdoms as human beings looking at the prayer times. What does it teach us? It teaches us many things. First, it teaches us discipline. It teaches us discipline, consistency, remaining upon doing the same thing and sticking to doing that thing. What do most humans lack? Which that is what most humans lack. What makes most humans not succeed in life. What makes a good businessman, what makes a successful person is his consistency, is his discipline. Now,
Right.
so that this prayer, which is good for you, which doesn't benefit God, because Allah told us clearly in the Quran, it doesn't benefit God. It teaches
Right.
you consistency and discipline. It teaches you to stick to your time. Prayers have appointed times, so the respect of time, your time and others' times,
Mm.
and being on time. That is something that you're being taught in the prayer. Now you connect with God. So it teaches you that you need to dedicate a time in your day and in your life to God. Not everything is just about the world, but there are times and instances that should be given to the Creator. And within that time, it's only for God. When we enter
Right.
the mosque, we leave the worldly life there outside
Right.
before
Right.
entering
Right.
the mosque. And when we pray, then we just focus on that Creator alone. We connect with Him. Now we say, whenever I remember to thank God, but this world is full of distractions. That's why this world exists. That's why you need reminders. You know, when you want to do something important, you put reminders on your phone. You don't just say, if I remember that important thing. No, you need reminders. As a human being, you forget. You're forgetful. Not only are you forgetful, but like I said, this world is full of distractions. You start getting distracted with, music. You start getting distracted with parties. You start getting distracted with women, with food, with money, with everything. And you forget God. And that is the reality of the most people who are upon the earth. The
Right.
reality of most people who are upon the earth. And without a constant reminder that brings you back to the Creator, you cannot have that. Go look at the studies, anyways, for people, for instance, who pray and their mental
Mhm.
health and mental well-being versus people who don't, religious people versus people who aren't. And you will see that it's your own benefit because you take that time to focus on something spiritual, on God, not just worldly, materialistic aspects of life that gives you anxiety and pain, but things that even helps you. Even in the prayer, if you look at the least amount of things, you do physical movements. These are by definition helping your body, helping you stay in a functioning state. Not just sitting in your mother's basement 24/7 gaining weight or something. So Islam has so many things. Right now, the prayer is done where? Prayer is done in a mosque. So what
Yes.
happens in a mosque? You go and you stand.
Side by side.
You stand next to the person. And the Prophet told us, your feet next to their feet, your shoulder next to your shoulder. Now, that person might be black. That person might be white. That person might be Chinese. That person might be from any place. Now, that racism that people have been suffering from, you have people like Malcolm X. You have people like Muhammad Ali Clay. Why did he accept Islam? They looked at that. Malcolm X went to Mecca and he saw everyone wearing the same white cloth that we wear when we do pilgrimage. And he said, this is the eradication of racism. And of course, he lived in times of racism. Now, that's what the prayers does. It removes anything. It doesn't matter if you're Bill Gates. It doesn't matter if you're Elon Musk. You will stand next to the person who is the janitor of the house, the cleaner. Doesn't matter who he is. You put shoulder to shoulder. You're not going to say, oh, that person is not clean enough. It doesn't matter. You're going to stand next to them. You put shoulder to shoulder and feet to feet. And you will learn to humble yourself and put your face on the floor and humble yourself in front of the Creator as a form of submission. And the person who will lead the prayer is not the most rich person. It's not the most educated person. It is the person who is most pious and memorizes most of God's words and practices most. That's the person who's going to lead the prayer. He's better than you in the eyes of God. And you're going to learn that. Also, the community sense. You have your own community. You will learn. You get to know people, your brothers and sisters in the faith. Look, I can give you a never-ending list of the
That
benefits of
is
the prayer.
easily the most comprehensive answer I've ever had, man. So yeah, honestly, yeah, well done.